February 23rd, 2023 meeting of the Parker Planning Commission to order at 7 p.m. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Roll call. Let's see. Absent is Rich. Jane is seated for Rich. And Ira and Nick are absent as well. All right. Next. Are there any additions to or deletions from the agenda, Bryce?
No, sir, there are not.
Okay. Approval of the minutes. We have first the minutes from January 12th, 2023. Are there any corrections to those minutes?
No.
Do we have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes from January 12th, 2023.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Eric, seconded by Ileana, that we approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes from January 12th, 2023, and I will call the question. Kim?
Aye.
Ileana?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Ruth Ann?
Aye.
Roxy?
Aye.
Jane?
I will note that I was not there at that meeting on the dais, but I approved the minutes.
Okay. And the chair is aye. It is passed unanimously. Second, the Planning Commission meeting minutes from January 26th, 2023. Any corrections to those?
I have none.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes for Planning Commission meeting January 26, 2023.
Second?
It's been moved by Roxy, seconded by Ruth Ann, that we approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes, January 26, 2023. I will call the question. Kim?
Aye.
Ileana?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Ruth Ann?
Aye.
Roxy?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Chair is aye. Approved unanimously. Okay. Next, 6A, public hearing. It is a public hearing on O'Brien Park Lot 1 site plan. And we will open this public hearing at 7:02. And we will turn it over to Amber.
Good evening, Commissioner and Planning Commission. This evening I will be presenting on the O'Brien Park Site Plan Minor Amendment Application Request. The property is located at the corner of Main Street and Parker Road. O'Brien Park is bounded on the north by a vacant lot owned by the town for future park expansion and institutional uses, to the east by commercial and residential uses, to the south by commercial uses, and to the west by office and commercial uses. The 10.67 acre property was annexed into the town in 1981 as part of the original incorporation to the town and includes a playground, ball field, pool complex, gazebo, parking, lighting, landscaping, and irrigation. The parcel's current zoning is Greater Downtown District Town Center, and the site is located within the Main Street Master Plan character area of the Parker 2035 Master Plan. The proposed site improvements will update landscaping on the west, south, and east perimeters of O'Brien Park as part of the P3 downtown placemaking improvements. Other than low walls, there are no structures proposed for this project. The fencing along Main Street will be removed, and the park edges will be enhanced to help guide pedestrians to crosswalks. Cut stones from the area surrounding the park, as well as Corten steel panels similar to those used on the Pace Center, will be used to beautify the park edge facing Parker Road. Additionally, a variety of landscaping materials will be used to vary the ground cover. Staff has reviewed the proposal and has determined the following. The project is consistent with the master plan and the Greater Downtown Historic Center zoning. All plating requirements for the land development ordinance have been satisfied, and public notice requirements have been satisfied. Therefore, staff recommends to the Planning Commission that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the O'Brien Park Site Plan Amendment to Town Council. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is here to answer questions as well.
Thank you. Questions for Amber?
Are we actually increasing the size of the park in any way, or are we just changing the landscaping?
Just changing the landscaping.
Okay.
Where you have the seating on the walls next to Main Street, is there a second level kind of backing that? Or is that bench kind of right up against Main Street?
It's a great question for Brett.
Yeah, I can answer that question. Brett Collins, Park Project Manager. Yeah, there's a wall and then a Corten steel panel. So the Corten steel is that kind of self-weathering, rusting steel that you see over at Pace Center that will tie back into that building. So they're kind of trying to tie all the elements downtown. But there'll be a wall, a planter bed with shrubs in it, and then a Corten steel panel. So you won't really be able to walk through it very easily. And that was the intent of that, was to get rid of the fence and make that more of a barrier through there, but make it look more attractive than the current fence that's there.
Right, there's not going to be kids, I mean, they can jump over, but they're not going to be able to just bound out and trip and fall into Main Street, correct?
No, if you can kind of see it on that, where that bottom right-hand corner one, where the people are sitting there. So there'll be
Right.
a row of shrubs, and then there's a distance between the roadway, and then also you have the parking spots that are there. So you'd have to go over the wall, through the shrub bed, and then through the parking spaces to get in the street. But the whole intent of this project really is to better control that, but make it look better.
Okay.
And take away the fence.
Since you're here, one more question. So is there sort of a berm that's created between Parker Road and that edge of the park as well?
Yeah, so out there now, you've seen those planter boxes, and those were kind of a recycled planter boxes from another project that were brought out there to try to enhance that area. So what we're planning on doing is removing those and then doing berming and then landscaping and mulching with rock in there to form some patterns to give it a little bit of texture. The rock will look really nice at the beginning because it'll have the texture before the plant's grown, and then when the plant's grown, they'll look very good. But yes, it's going to undulate through there and really make the entryway into the downtown a lot better than it is now. It's needed that for a little while, I think.
And it's not reflected on that image that we're looking at right now in the upper left corner, but there is fencing that goes around that park area, so we don't have little ones running out, jumping over the berm and into Parker Road, correct?
That's correct. Yep. Yeah, there's a gate. It's fenced off, and that happened with the new playground project.
Okay,
So that is
that's what I
all.
thought. Okay, thank you.
Further questions for Amber or Brett?
None from me.
I just noticed some comments in the referral comments, and I just want to make sure those have been addressed.
They have,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Brett. All right. As this is a public hearing, we always allow the public to speak to the matter before us. If you have a comment regarding this particular item before the commission at this time, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, please. Seeing none, we will close the public comment portion of the meeting. Any further questions for staff? No. No?
No questions from
All
me.
right, then we will
No.
close the public hearing at 7:08. And we will have commissioner discussion.
I think it looks like a great, hopefully enhancement, guiding people rather than people darting in and out of Main Street. But it looks like you've got some nice improvements. It's not just a brick wall, kind of shuttling everybody in. So it looks good to me.
I think this is, well, the improvements continue, and for the time I've been here, this has been a subject, so it's nice to see it finally happening. Congratulations to the town of Parker, and I look forward to seeing it.
Provides a good gateway into the town. I appreciate that. This looks great.
Today on Facebook, Town of Parker posted a picture of Main Street looking east, and you could see the Quonset hut and what has become O'Brien Park, and this is just really nice. It's a really wonderful improvement especially since 1965, which is when that picture had been taken. So I will be in favor of it.
Yeah, I'm also in favor of this. I'm watching these improvements step by step take place since I've come to Parker, so I count this as just one more step in the right direction.
I will agree with my fellow commissioners. I think this is a great opportunity to create an area where both citizens and businesses can benefit from public improvements in an area where we don't want to tell people no, but we want to guide them to where we want them to be. So it takes care of creating the barrier without making it look like a barrier. So I appreciate that about this project.
I agree with my fellow commissioners. I do kudos to the Parks Department on making your funds go as far as you do, given, the not unlimited funding that the Parks budget has. So, again, good work with that. So do we have a motion?
I move the Planning Commission recommend Town Council approve the O'Brien Park L1 site plan amendment.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Eric, seconded by Eliana, that Planning Commission recommend Town Council approve the O'Brien Park L1 site plan amendment. And I will call the question. Kim?
Aye.
Eliana?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Ruth Ann?
Aye.
Roxy?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Chair is aye. Passes unanimously. All right. Thank you. Next item, item 6B, the Ray J. Harvey Lot 1 Open Space Site Plan. And we will open the public hearing at 7:11, and we'll turn it over to Ashley.
Okay, just making sure my stuff was up. Right. Good evening, Planning Commission and Chair. This evening, I will be presenting the Harvey Open Space Site Plan Application Request. Ooh. Me and Jeff are fighting, sorry. So this property is located on the east side of town, directly north of the intersection of Canterbury Parkway and Main Street. This property is bounded on the north and the east by large lot residential in Douglas County, and to the west by medium density residential within the town, and to the south by other residential parcels. The property is zoned as open space and is located within the planned development area. This 71.061 acre parcel was annexed into the town in 2018 and was zoned as open space. This undeveloped parcel includes an existing conservation easement held by the Douglas Land Conservancy, which limits the development on the property to preserve the open space in the long term. The proposed site plan improvements will allow the public to access this valuable open space. The improvements include a loop walking path with educational features, covered seating, vaulted restrooms, and off-street gravel parking. The proposed improvements will also allow for ADA access as well as a pedestrian exclusive entrance. The staff has reviewed the proposal and has determined that, 1, the property is consistent with the master plan. 2, all zoning and platting requirements for the land development ordinance, including the open space zoning code, have been satisfied. And 3, the public notice requirements have also been satisfied. So therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the Harvey Open Space Site Plan to Town Council. This concludes staff's presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is also here.
Okay, questions for Ashley?
Do we anticipate horses being able to use this?
That is a good question for Brett.
Yes.
Yes.
It'll be a multi-use trail.
There will be equestrian?
Yeah, they'd be able to ride, you would be able to ride a horse on the trail.
And will there be adequate ability to pull a trailer in, to park a
There
trailer?
will not be trailer parking.
So how will horses access this
You'd
if they
have to
were going to
you'd have
ride the horse
You'd have
into?
to ride down the sidewalk to do it, but you could ride a horse on the property
Okay,
if you can get it there. There won't be any access from the north, from the large lot area, but, so I don't think there'll be a lot of horse traffic there. This will be mostly pedestrian use, and I don't think mountain bikes will use it very much because it's about a 1.5 mile loop, so it's not super challenging on a bike.
okay. But if someone was coming from way east where they have horses, they could ride their horses along the road and then access?
They could, yeah, if they wanted to do that.
Okay. I have a friend who has a horse, and they asked me about it, so I thought I'd ask the question.
How many parking spaces do you anticipate?
20, and that's limited by the conservation easement that's on the property, so we cannot put any more than that on the parcel.
So will there be signage noting that if the parking lot is full, what's the contingency plan? I think it's going to be very popular initially.
It could be right at the beginning. I think as time goes on, it might not, and I think there'll be a lot of walk-in traffic too from the neighborhood surrounding it as well. But if the parking lot fills, I anticipate that there's public parking on Pope Road that's just to the east, and then there may be some parking that happens in the neighborhoods adjacent to it. You cannot get in there's not a trail connection from Quail Run over to the trails right now. So I don't anticipate any parking there and walking in, because what you need to do, then you'd have to walk, down, you have to walk down Main Street. And Ashley had mentioned that western pedestrian-only access, and that's where you would get in. So I think parking in the neighborhood shouldn't be a concern for that.
Okay, thank you.
If I can add to that. So many of our trailheads actually have around 20 spaces, and I don't believe there are issues at other trailheads in terms of 20 spaces being enough to support a trailhead.
Other questions for staff?
I just want to clarify. According to the report, it's 20 spaces of parking with the exception of handicap. So there's additional handicap parking that'll also be available?
Well, there's handicap parking that's at the site, and it's 20 spaces total, including the handicap.
Okay.
My understanding is that the ADA was the part that might not be gravel. Is that correct?
Yes, and we did get.
Thank you, Jane.
Yeah, we did get approval from the Land Conservancy in order to put that concrete in so we could get access to the restroom building from the parking stalls. And then we have a stabilized crusher fine surface that will go up to the first main shelter that has 2 picnic tables, which will allow ADA access up to there. The rest of the trails will be ADA accessible, but they'll be a little bit harder than a normal trail would be because it's a crusher fine surface.
I've got a question. So, if you're finished, looks like the property backs up to some acreage homes in Douglas County. And I was just curious if there's been outreach, first of all, to those residents, and then also if there was consideration of, or maybe it's mentioned in here and I missed it, a buffer zone between the trail that's being proposed and the lot lines for those properties.
Yeah, so in 2017-18, there was a master plan that went out. There was public involvement in the master plan. I wasn't at the town at that time. I've only been with the town for about 1.5 years now. So that master plan was actually approved by town council. So that's what we're basing our site plan for tonight on, is that, and it matches the master plan pretty much exactly. There is a rather large buffer between that trail and those homes to the north. And then those are all large lots, so the house is set back quite a bit, and there's a lot of room. So I don't anticipate there being any problems with noise or people. And this is really meant to be a passive park, not an real active park, and for hiking and enjoying nature.
Okay, thank you.
Just out of curiosity, can you give me an idea of what a large buffer is? Idea, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think it's about, I'm going to say at least 100 feet to
Okay.
get to a house. if you're on that trail.
And then my other question is, are dogs allowed? Because I know some of the people in those neighborhoods behind there do have horses, and sometimes dogs can be a real problem running after those horses.
So the dogs are allowed, but they'll have to be on leash. And we did provide dog bag dispensers
good.
on the trail
Okay.
for bags.
Where's the access going to be? I wasn't able to pull up the plat.
The pedestrian access or the vehicle?
Yeah, I guess both the parking lot and the pedestrian access.
So the parking lot access will line up right with Canterbury Parkway. And then in order to be able to get a fire truck in and out of there, we also have another access just to the east, which accommodates emergency vehicles. So you have 2 points of access. That access, however, would just be a right in, right out because there's a median there. But we'll have a full movement signal at Canterbury Parkway and Main Street.
That's new, right?
It is new, and that's we're starting on that project here in the near future if it would quit snowing.
Get warmer.
Any other questions for staff?
Not now.
All right. Okay, so again, as this is a public hearing, we invite the public to comment on the project before us now. If you have a comment on this particular project before us, please step to the microphone. State your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, my name is Phyllis Hartzell. My address is 1659 South Elbert. I'm an Elizabeth resident, but this property is owned by the Tyfer Family Marital Trust, of which I am an heir of. My mother lives in this home. Her and my father built this house in 1999. He has since passed, unfortunately, so she is living in this home by herself, and it butts up to this area for this trail system that you're talking about. And when they bought this property, they were told that that would never be built upon of any type of structures of any kind. So that's partly why they had chosen that particular lot. I have some strong concerns about her being a senior citizen living in that home by herself and having these people able to come up behind her house on a daily basis. These homes are not built with fences because they've got the ditch that runs behind them. And so there are stairs that go straight up to her back door off the back of her house. And she is, unfortunately, has some health issues, so or otherwise she would be here. She was wondering if there's a copy of the agreement, as they were told at the time by the builder, that Mr. Harvey had set this aside to be completely open space, no building, under the Freedom of Information Act. Is there an agreement that Mr. Harvey had with the town for this piece of property that says that he did not want anything to be built or put upon it? And you're talking about the lot, what size is this lot 1?
We can answer those questions when we end the public comment, then we'll.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. We're worried about the devaluation of her property with this process. We know that the deer come between the houses, so I don't see why people wouldn't park their cars in front of Mom's house and walk between the houses, because most people don't have fences along that area that back up to that open space. She's in the Quail Creek Estates. She wants to know what's wrong with leaving it alone. She wants to know if there's financial backing is coming from somewhere for this process. Lights, is there going to be lights, hours of usage, the light pollution? Impact on the wildlife, the deer, the fox, the raccoons. She says a mountain lion visits periodically. if you're going to have receptacles out there, the raccoons are known to get into everybody's trash and tear things up. We saw you're going to have pavilions, sanitary services.
We presume it's going to be public water and public sewer out there, or porta potties?
Actually, it's a vault restroom,
Okay.
which is,
So you have a maintenance schedule on
Right.
cleaning the vault, and
Right.
it'll be properly permitted.
Just for formatting purposes, you're asking your questions and having your comments. We don't answer them directly.
Okay.
And it's not a question and back. You're making your statement, and then we will try as best as we can to address your concerns with other parties who might have that information, but it's not a back and forth, just so that you know.
Correct. Okay, there is concern because that's a lot of grass, and I know even the tree behind Mom's is fairly dead from the woodpeckers and whatever. So fire hazards that people create with cigarette butts and whatever else that can potentially happen there. We're also concerned about this becoming kind of a safe haven for homeless. I know there's been some issues about them living under the bridge over by the Pace Center, that kind of thing.
about 30 seconds remaining.
Safety issue for Mom. How do you plan to patrol this? And I guess that's enough questions.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I think we live close by to her mom. We live in Quail Creek Estates. My name's Mary L. Frost, and this is Eric Wolf. And our address is 10720 Wild Ridge Court, and we're one of the houses on the west side. When you look at those purple lines, not the large acreage, but on the west side. So there's about 5 houses that are going to touch that open space. And we moved in, it'll be 2 years ago this summer, but we were also told by the seller's realtor that it was a property that would never be developed, or it would be open space, and under the agreement, the Harvey agreement. And neighbors that we've talked to have said the same thing. And we have 5 kids between the two of us, 4 teenagers. So when we moved in, we did a lot of construction to the basement, tore down walls, huge project. And we put, my 2 teenage daughters are on the back side of the house that faces this open space. And our master bedroom is upstairs, and our bathroom that faces the open space. And we didn't account for privacy issues when we moved in, so we didn't include that in our construction because we were under the assumption that there wouldn't be anybody back there. So it is I understand it's an enhancement for the residents of Parker. I've lived in Parker for 15 years, and I've seen a lot of change, but it is a devaluation of like our property and our house and our expectations. Is there anything?
We, of course, none of us have, and it was mentioned before, none of us have any sort of privacy fences back there as the residents that face the street might. We, you know, nobody had an expectation that there would ever be really people on the other side of our property line. And so while we enjoy the things that Parker's done, I've lived here for 10 years, you know, it's a little bit close to home, quite literally, and, you know, and the idea that there could be people and pets, even though, you know, there isn't a path that comes within 100 feet of our house. The fact that there could be people and pets coming that close to our property, right up to the line, without any sort of, you know, any sort of thing to prevent them from doing that. We have dogs, we have, you know, and we're concerned about our privacy and about, you know, the safety of our pets, and you know, the fact that people will be able to see right into our windows from a place that, you know, people weren't ever going to be.
About 30
And-
seconds.
And it's very hilly. And one of my questions is, does the town have resources for, like, financial resources for the adjustments we're going to have to make to our house? Privacy windows, privacy fences, things that we would have built into our budget had we known.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further, we will close the public comment portion of the meeting. You know, I was involved with the school district when Highlands Ranch was being built, and they had just done I think there were about 3,500 people living in Highlands Ranch, and we had a person come to a meeting in school district and say, well, my realtor told me that nothing was ever going to be built on the rest of that property to the south. Well, today, 80,000 people live there. I guess the point of that story is that, realtors will tell you whatever you want to hear or whatever they want you to know. And so just to put that out there. The original agreement, Amber, Brett, Bryce.
I can speak to that. As I mentioned before, there's a conservation easement on the property that was signed by the Harvey family for this property. And the property was always intended to be open space. The family wanted it to remain open space, but it wanted to be able to have some public access to this. The property was owned by the Harveys, and then the Harveys gave it to Douglas County, and then Douglas County gave it to the town of Parker. In order to keep it from becoming developed into homes, multifamily or single-family homes, residential, the Harveys wanted to ensure that it wasn't able to do that, but they wanted some type of access. So they did the conservation easement, and that's why it's so limiting on the 20-car parking space. It was only allowed to have the one restroom. It was only allowed to have 6-foot wide crusher fine trails instead of a normal 8 to 10-foot wide trail. It precluded removing trees unless we put trees back in. So there are 5 trees that are being removed, but we're putting 16 pine trees back in on the site. And then it also doesn't allow for much disturbance when we go in there. And I'd also note there is not a direct connection over, I think I did mention this earlier, there is not a direct connection to the Quail Creek neighborhood. And that was at the request of the neighborhood at the time, back in 2017-18, because they didn't want direct access over there. And there is an area where you could access it, but the entire site will be fenced off with wire fence all the way around that's currently out there. It's kind of in disrepair, but we're going to replace all that with brand new fencing. So there will be a barrier between the neighboring properties and the overall site. So that's a little bit of a background on the conservation easement and the intent of that and what the Harvey family wanted.
And these improvements are being funded by the town, the Parks and Rec open space budget?
That's correct. Yep. It's from the sales tax.
Easement public record?
Yes.
The conservation
Yes,
easement?
the conservation easement. Yes, we do have a copy of it if anybody would like to receive that.
What's the date of the conservation easement?
I want to say it's 1996. And I'm not.
Not new is what I'm asking.
No, it's not. It's not new. It's been around for a little while.
Is the fencing that you're talking about, the wire fencing, go not just behind Quail Creek, but to the large lots?
It does. Yeah, the entire perimeter is going to be fenced in with new fencing.
And it's currently fenced, just to confirm that, it's currently fenced. We're going to replace it with upgraded fencing?
Yes. Right now, I think there's a combination of barbed wire and wire fencing. We're going to go smooth wire instead of the barbed wire. And then there's also some fencing within the plan that will allow deer access over the fence. It's a deer fence. It's a wildlife thing. So someone, I think, mentioned there was some deer that are out there.
Do the trailheads in the town in general have hours of use like that where it's posted somewhere?
Yeah, it wouldn't be, it would be 6 to 11 p.m. So just like a normal park.
Okay.
And there'll be a rules and regulations sign stating that.
And I'm assuming Parker Police will patrol that like it does other parks and
Correct.
open space?
Yes.
Okay.
And lighting will be consistent with other parks in the area?
So there isn't any lighting in the park except for on the vault restroom structure, and that's going to face east away from the Quail Creek subdivision. So you shouldn't be able to see any. It's a very small 14-watt light that would be on the outside of the building, much like a porch light.
Yeah.
The trash receptacles, there'll be one or more trash receptacles. You mentioned that there's also poop bag receptacles.
Yes.
Are the wildlife trash receptacles, are they wildlife proofed, or how do we make sure the raccoons don't go in and spread trash all over the?
Well, we don't know that that's going to happen yet, but if that does occur, then we could do more of a wildlife type trash receptacle.
Okay.
They're not called out for right now.
Okay.
And I just want to confirm that the Harbys did, I know this was a conservation easement, but they did want public access.
Yes.
And so because of that, they gifted the town to Douglas County, who then basically gifted it to Parker.
Correct. Yeah.
I have a question just based on some of the comments from the public this evening, and wondering if the Parks Department has considered adding maybe a tree or shrub barrier for privacy to the Quail Loop homes there, or anything like that?
The trail is really pretty far away, and I apologize for not knowing the exact dimension on that, but I think someone mentioned it's probably over 150 feet before you would have the trail, so it's quite a ways off of the property line. I think the original design for that was meant for that reason, because I think that they were sensitive to having a good buffer between the trail and the homes. And when you're out there, when you're walking where the trail is going to be, it's quite a distance over to those homes.
I have to say, when we first acquired this property, I toured it, and because we were all given walking tours around through it, I couldn't even see a house. And all the houses that we're talking about had already been built. So it wasn't even apparent to me that there were homes around it. So I don't think that's going to be an issue, personally,
Yeah. And
based on my experience.
And this is also, an open space park, and it's about 1.5 mile loop trail. So I think most people, it's not going to be crowded like you would see at a soccer field or a playground like O'Brien or something like that. This is meant to be passive use. It may be popular at the beginning, and people will come out and see it, but I think over time, there won't be heavy use on it. It'll be mostly people walking in and utilizing the trail.
I know that the Conservancy has had several opportunities for people to meet at the open space and walk through it. And the commenters tonight did not say that they had observed people or seen people. It was a concern about future use. So there have been people accessing that over time, and they did not comment on the fact that they had seen or observed people at that time. So I understand your concern, especially with teenagers, but I just don't think that that's, I don't think the public access part is as much of an issue. The only other question I had was regarding, we haven't addressed the fire hazards. That was raised, and I think that's the only thing that's on my list of things that were raised by the public comment.
Yeah, so our Parks Department is currently working on fire mitigation plan for all of our open spaces and parks. So this would fall under that fire mitigation plan. And then there's certain mowing practices and those kind of things that can be done to minimize the risk of fire. And I think most people know in Colorado that we have a lot of open space in the town of Parker, and People know that you're not supposed to be out there smoking or throwing cigarettes or something like that to light the fuel on fire. So I think we have that under control with this new plan that's going to be in place.
I have a question. The only structure you're going to build is the restroom, correct?
And then there's 2 shade shelters as well.
Okay, but they're minimal.
They're smaller, yes.
Okay. And then the trail is going to be,
Yeah, 6-foot wide crushed gravel
Okay.
trail that's 1.5 miles long.
other trails aren't going to have lighting.
The trail will not have lighting. There'll be some interpretive signs along the trail that point out different Colorado features and wildlife and those kind of things. And then some wayfinding signs, but that's it.
Okay, thank you.
I have 2 additional questions. My first question is this: has the town of Parker received a FOIA or a CORE request regarding the easement, the Harvey agreement?
Not that I'm aware of.
And my other question is this: 150 feet seems like a lot when you're not living behind that. And so I'm wondering what, if anything, can or should be done, or if it's just a police issue if, say, teenage boys or somebody else kind of gets rambunctious and goes up and starts doing stuff at the fence line.
No, I think that would just be like any other incident with the Parker PD. You'd call them and have them come out and take care of that if that was the case.
Thank you.
Anything else for staff?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. If that's all we have, thanks, Brett. We will close the public hearing at 7:41. Commissioner discussion.
So I
Go ahead.
So I appreciate everybody's concerns, and I grew up pretty rural and had some of the same issues happen. And I've seen a lot of conservation easements in my professional work too. And every conservation easement reads differently. It doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't get touched. And because of this conservation easement with the people wanting the public access, I think there's some valid concerns, and I think every time something new happens in our town, behind our houses, we tend to think the worst. I walk actually that ditch in the back all the time. It's rare that we run into anybody back there. So I just, I hear your concerns, but if the Harveys had wanted public access, that's part of the conservation easement. So I do think it's a great addition in this area. And I think because of the location, you're going to see probably more people from Quail Creek, the neighborhoods to the east, walking through there rather than the parking issue, this overflowing parking lot with a lot of trash. However, I would second Ruth Ann's comment about the wildlife. I think raccoon, I think bear-proof, wildlife, raccoon-proof trash cans should be in order through the Parks Department, and I would hope that they would take that into consideration.
So I live surrounded by probably more trails than I've walked since I've lived there for 5 years. And there are homes that have no fencing. There are homes that back up to the trail. There are homes that back up to the open space. We have people come through and walk, and they're very polite. I've seen people who don't live in our subdivision pick up things and throw them in the trash can and be very polite about things and actually call out to others who don't have their dogs on their leash to please leash their dog. We have a number of friends that live back up, and it's not 150 feet, it's probably 6 feet. So while I understand the concerns, I see this as fulfilling the dream of a Harvey family to do something great for the town of Parker as we continue to grow. So I hope the issues aren't great, because I just don't see it happening. Where I am, and I live in Idlewild, we have very little issues, if any at all. People are very mindful and respectful of the fact that there are homes where I can see people's TVs when I walk the trails. I've walked this, I didn't think there were homes there.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. Wow, what are we putting here? Nothing. It's even better, but, so. but thank you.
I sort of already made my statement earlier. So I have lived in a home that backed directly up to a very heavily used trail, not here, but in another state, many thousands of years ago, and with no real fencing, and it was not a horrible issue. I was still able to fully enjoy my backyard and my space. People are nicer than you think, especially when they're grateful to have a space like this to use. I do not remember seeing any homes at all when I toured this with the Conservancy a couple of years ago, and we walked all over that property, looked at all the old pieces of equipment that was still sitting out there rusting. It was very cool. Really enjoyed it, and I think the plans that have been drawn up are respectful of the neighbors. I think that I am excited that it's going to be ADA compliant and that folks will be able to use it in that manner. I think that's a wonderful thing. My friend will be disappointed that he won't be able to pull his trailer through and park it and put his, so he can bring a horse over, but he'll get over it. So this has my support, and I hope that the comments made by the public tonight have been addressed as best we can do tonight.
Just slightly little thing to add. I want to thank you guys for coming in, for the public to bring these comments to light, because it did help us dig a little deeper into the plan and the design. And hopefully Brett was able to answer some of your questions and alleviate some of your concerns. Especially at first when I thought, is this in violation of the land grant here? This would be bad news. But hearing that the conservation easement was developed specifically for public access, I think this is in the spirit and the scope of that easement, and therefore I am in support of it. I appreciate, I think, Ruth Ann, you said, using concern with development of the trail. From what I saw, and we'll see it when it does flush out, when it's completed, that it does appear that it's going to be far enough away from the homes that the hikers will have some privacy and feel they're out in nature, not around the houses, and that the homeowners themselves will not be interrupted by the hikers too much. That's all.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with the rest of my commissioners. I would also advise the Parks Department, although it's not a contingency that I'm asking for, that we consider wild animals and the trash. I have also been out there as a part of a guest from the Douglas Sand Conservancy, and it is a beautiful parcel, and I am in that neighborhood. I live in Willow Park, which is not too far, so I will probably be one of those people who will come walk to that property. I do hear concerns, and I'm hoping that we have addressed them, like Roxy said, as best as we are able. I think it's a great addition to the neighborhood. It's unfortunate that we don't all have time to do all of the legal due diligence when we buy a property to really understand what happens behind your house or your proposed house. And it's unfortunate that that doesn't happen, but unfortunately you have to go with what's already there. And just even being open space, like not built on, does not mean that stuff won't happen to it. I know this one is not exactly that way, but there's only so much that the town can do to put that information forward in a way that you're able to grasp it. And that information has been accessible as far as I can tell. So I think it's a great opportunity to make this happen for the town of Parker, and I will be in support.
Not a whole lot more to add. I think Roxy kind of said it best, that this feels like this is within the spirit of what the Harveys wished for their land. I really appreciate the activation of this property. I live less than a block into Canterbury there, and we would use this. We've been excited about activating this site, not having to climb over a barbed wire fence to go onto that property. and I too would be in support. The only thing I may add too, I think I'd echo what Kim says about the trash receptacles and possibly adding a condition that the town, I don't know, explores it, implores it, whatever would happen there to potentially upgrade those trash receptacles. There's a lot of wildlife in that area. They come into my neighborhood, in my yard, so I know it, I see it.
Okay. Thanks, Aaron. There's really nothing more that I can add. I certainly am in support of this project. I too live nearby, and it's a beautiful piece of property, and that people can get an idea of what things might have looked like, as my fellow commissioners that have visited pointed out. So I'm in support of it as well. Do we have a motion?
I move Planning Commission recommend Town Council approve the Ray J. Harvey Lot 1 Open Space Site Plan.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Eliana, seconded by Roxy, that Planning Commission recommend Town Council approve the Ray J. Harvey Lot 1 Open Space Site Plan. And I'll call the question. Kim?
Aye.
Eliana?
Aye.
Eric?
So if I wanted to add a condition, am I able to do that as a motion, or because it's already been moved? How would that work?
Been moved.
We would have to,
So since it's already been moved, you can't add a condition at this point.
The rest of us vote it down, and then we'd have a new motion.
Exactly. If it's regarding the wildlife receptacles, I think we can say we acknowledge that and we'll explore it.
Explore or commit?
I think all I can say is explore at this point.
So I'm going to vote no, as I would like to add a condition.
okay. Ruth Ann?
I think Eric should be allowed to add his, not because I don't approve of what you've done, but if you would like that, I can support his need to do that, so I will vote no.
I will also vote no, so Eric can get his condition on.
I wasn't going to add the condition, but I would be in favor of that condition. As a result, I will also facilitate that and vote no.
Okay. And so I will vote no, and so the motion fails. Now
You better bring that.
a new motion?
I have it here.
Oh, you haven't? Okay, go.
I move the Planning Commission recommend Town Council approve the Harvey J. Open Space Site Plan, subject to the following condition: the addition of wildlife-proof trash receptacles being included in the plan.
I second.
It's been moved by Ruth Ann, seconded by Eric, that Planning Commission recommend Town Council approve the Ray J. Harvey Open Space Site Plan, subject to the following conditions. And the condition is that the,
Plan be amended to include
okay,
wildlife-proof trash receptacles.
thank you, Ruth Ann.
You're welcome.
And I will call the question. Kim?
Aye.
Eliana?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Ruth Ann?
Aye.
Roxy?
Aye.
Jay?
Aye.
Chair is aye. Motion with condition passes. All right. Let's see. Any planning, staff items, Bryce?
None except for there are no items posted for the next agenda.
Okay. So that means there's no meeting or no?
It means you'll receive, an official cancellation email
Oh, okay.
soon.
Okay.
Tomorrow, maybe.
All right. All right then, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn the
I
Planning
s-
Commission meeting.
I second.
Moved by Eric, seconded by Ruth Ann, that we adjourn the meeting. Kim?
Aye.
Eliana?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Ruth Ann?
Aye.
Roxy?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Chair is aye. We are adjourned.